Hey everyone, before we start this week's episode, I want to remind you that La Mano del Destino, the complete graphic novel by Jay Gonzo, is available for order right now through Top Cow and Image. All you got to do is go to your favorite comic book shop, call them, go to comicshoplocator.com, figure out where to get this, try to get it through a comic book shop. It is the complete story, 6 full issues, 240 pages. It's on shelves May 19th. And the final order cutoff is April 15th. So you got to get your ass to your store before April 15th. Let them know that you want to order La Mano del Destino, Jay Gonzo's Lucha Libre comic graphic novel. It's fantastic. And even better, you can give them the order code. It's MAR 210103. That's MAR 210103. Order that hotness. Support a local comic. Local Phoenix artists, and support indie comics, and support a comic book shop while you're at it and buy it through them. Thanks, and enjoy the episode. All right, everybody, another week and another episode without Scott, who's still out this week on deadline and spring break responsibilities. But I do have something planned for you, something special, and I'm riding high after the Coyotes just put on a clinic against the Avalanche. So suck on that one, Joe Sakic. You are listening to The Illustrious Gentleman. It's a podcast hosted by two comic book professionals who get together to talk about comics, work, beer, and sometimes life, who knows, whatever comes up. Scott is currently working on Superman for DC Comics. That'd be Scott Godleski, my better half. And I'm Ryan Cody, and I'm coloring Family Tree at Image Comics. And you can visit tigshow.com for all your Tig Show merch needs and for links on where to follow us on social media and how to support the show by joining up as a patron or just buying us around. It's all there at tigshow.com. So, way back in 2016, in episode number 5, Scott and I went through our Mount Rushmore of comic book artists. And the 3 guys I'm going to be talking about today were all mentioned in that episode. So on this week's episode, it's too many episodes. On this week's episode, though, I thought I'd steal a bit from the great cartoonist Cape Fabe YouTube videos. If you're not watching them, you should be checking it out. And I thought I'd showcase a few of my all-time favorite guys, 3 of my favorite cartoonists, comic book artists, illustrators, if you will. This episode is probably best enjoyed by watching the YouTube version, but I'll do my best to make it enjoyable for our audio-only contingent as well. You can watch the YouTube video on our website, tigshow.com, tigshow.com. And as I talk about these artists, I'll be sharing images of their work, so if possible, hop over to that YouTube version. But still feel free to download or play the audio version as well, so we can get those numbers, those fat numbers. So on today's show, I'm going to be sipping on a classic, Heileman's Old Style, and which makes sense because all these artists are classics in my book, and none of the books I pulled these images from are even remotely new. So if you're dying to look at comic book images that are at least 6 years old, this is the show for you. So let's go ahead and for our video listeners, let me share screen. I haven't done this before, so all right, and we should be there. You should be able to see my first artist, Mike Mignola. If you're a Mignola fan, and why shouldn't you be, give episode number 24 a listen. We did that one in 2017. And it's where we gush over Mike like a couple of, prepubescent fanboys. Scott and I both had him on our Mount Rushmore, as every comic book artist should. He's on the Tig Show Mount Rushmore shirt that is available to our website. And the only time I ever met Mike, I interrupted his lunch. I gave him a copy of my very first trade paperback, a book called Villains that came out through Viper Comics, probably back in 07 or 08. And he gave me a sketchbook. So an incredibly nice gesture, considering how rude I'd been to interrupt his lunch and how bad the art in that trade paperback was. He was nothing but kind, and It was he was very nice, and it was a big moment for me. I'm sure it was a huge moment for Mr. Mignola. So as we go through these images, we're going to just talk about him a little bit. I'm going to tell you what I like about him. So first thing up, Hellboy, Volume 3, The Chained Coffin and Others. The trade paperback was released on August 5th, 1998, which is one day after my oldest son was born. So yeah, that's exciting. All right, so here we go. These first few pages are from The Corpse, and they're by colored by Matt Hollingsworth. So it was originally published as a two-page installments in Capital City's Advanced Comics catalog, and then the entire story was later collected and pages were added to it to fill it out. And it was in the one-shot Hellboy, The Corpse and the Iron Shoes, which I also own, as well as the graphic novel here. This image of Hellboy with the corpse on his tied to his back is super iconic. I've personally done plenty of commissions with this look to it. I just colored one a couple weeks ago for my patron. Leonardo Romero did one that was very similar. It's just very iconic, and any chance I get, if someone commissions me for a Hellboy sketch and they're not too specific about what they want, a lot of times I'll do this just because it's such a great look. But yeah, like just look at how good this is, how good these pages are, how good Mike's work is in this book. Um, he was still, Scott and I talk a lot about our prime era of Mignola, and this is definitely it. This is like, 95, 96, 97, late 90s Mignola, which is just the sweet spot for me. Um, yeah, everything's great here. The color palette is great. Just everything works. The brickwork. I love how he draws bricks and just makes them look good and not sloppy. Like if I tried that, it would just look sloppy and it wouldn't make any sense. But it just works magically when Mike does it. And there's a panel here of the corpse pointing kind of off page, and it's just great. It's just framed beautifully. It's insanely nice. Yeah, it's Corpse in the Iron Shoes. The Corpse. It's a fun short story. Next up, we're going to move to the Wolves of St. August, which I think Scott has said he thinks might be one of his favorite one-shots ever in comics. The color version was colored by James Sinclair. It was originally published in Dark Horse Presents number 88 through 91 in black and white. So I first read this story in black and white. It's collected in color. I prefer the black and white version. I think this particular story of the werewolves and the horror element and the big monster element really just works so well in black and white. Mike is a master of that of that simple line work, the graphic line work, the heavy use of shadows and shape. It's just great, and it works perfectly in black and white. It works fine here in color as well. It's just a great like monster fighting comic. If you want to see a superhero, which whatever, Hellboy's a superhero. He has a costume and he fights monsters and he fights things. He's a superhero. Yeah, this is it. I mean, the Wolves of St. August is a great story of him just fighting werewolves in an old church. It's brilliant. It's great. The fight scene in it is great. Everything just moves well. No wasted lines. No bullshit like backgrounds. Like this kind of harkens back to like really cool 90s comics, where like it was all about focusing on the action, and he does that really, really well here. Minimal backgrounds, big fights, big booms, big punches, just wonderful, just great stuff. So yeah, make sure you check that out if you haven't already seen it. It's the third Hellboy paperback. Yeah, just fighting werewolves and shit, man. All right, and then to wrap it up, we're going to go with an insanely cool Mignola book, and it's X Force number 8 from March 1992. It was inked by Bob Wiacek, with colors by the Booch, Steve Buccellato. This was so, when I was reading this comic, I would have been 15, 16, something like that. And I was all on board for Rob Liefeld, but even I could tell that he was had one foot out the door at this point. Like uh, everything was Image, everything was Youngblood, everything was like moving on. So I got this book and I was just hoping for more and more Rob Liefeld. Who doesn't love like Grizzly and Weapon X and Bridges, which is George Bridge, and get some Domino in here. It's great. It's like the six pack before. I don't know. It's the six pack. It was named after the mechanics in that movie with Kenny Rogers. But yeah, this is a great comic. And but when I first bought it, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because that's not Rob Liefeld's art in the middle. Rob does a framing sequence in it, but really the middle, like 16, 15 pages, are all Mike, and it's just brilliant. I mean, if you look at like if you look at the way he draws these characters that have outlandish designs, really, um, he still makes them look cool. Grizzly looks cool. Say what you will, but I mean, Mignola makes him look like a fourth world character, which I guess is what he was a ripoff of. But he looks cool. Domino looks cool. Even Bridges or Bridge, whatever his name is, he looks cool. Um, he's got a Kraken cable going on. It's all there. I mean, it's just so much fun to watch a style so differently than what you think of, when you're buying the book. Like it's not like they went and got like Mark Pacella or somebody else to do this book. They got Mike Mignola, who style was 1,000% the opposite swing of Liefeld, and it's great. I mean, I see on this page we're looking at right now, there's like a big laser cannon shooting it, and I look at that and I'm like, I will never draw a laser cannon that good ever, and most people won't. I mean, there might be two people on the planet, three people on the planet that could draw it that well. Two of them are on my list that I'm going to talk about tonight. But even the colors on this were really great for their time, like far and away better than, soon after this, we went to heavy airbrush and digital colors. But this is just solid, great color theory, like the shading and the highlighting on Grizzly, the blue with the pink laser popping off. It's super, super solid and just amazing stuff. Great Domino, sexy Domino, not the only sexy Domino we're going to see either. The heft of the characters, everyone's got weight. Like there's, when you see a drawing of Cable, he looks like a dude who probably weighs 2 tons, and then you see him and he's not even the biggest guy, on this team. It's just, everything is it's just great. It loses none of the excitement of like a Liefeld X-Force book. With just like added shit. Like when I saw this, I was like, oh, holy fuck. Like, yeah, there's dudes who could do this and not make it all scribbly and kind of like trying to hide shit with flash. Like this is all substance. This is all meat, no gristle, It's great. I mean, everyone looks solid in this. Again, the colors are just great. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much, how tight the pencils were, how much like Wyachek embellished on this, and how much he added to it. But it's super clean, super great. Just look at that Domino, just giving you the business. Just great framing. I love it. I stole so much from probably this comic without even really knowing it. I probably stole so much, before Hellboy really got into gear. Before I could rip off shit from Hellboy, I was probably ripping off shit from this issue. So yeah. And of course, he's got the cool shit like Body Slide by 1, Body Slide by 6. It's still the coolest shit in comics, bar none. All right. So next up on my list of artists is someone I've talked about on the show all the time, ad nauseum, Stuart Emanen. And first up, we're going to talk about the all-new, all-different X-Men that he launched with Brian Michael Bendis, Wade Von Grawbadger on inks, and Marte Gracia on colors. This book started coming out in January of 2013, and I said it a couple of weeks ago on social media, but I do think after reading a bunch of these, because they're all on Comixology, much of what I'm talking about today, you can pick up on Comixology Unlimited, read for free if you have your Amazon Prime account. But yeah, I think I finally realized that this trio is probably my favorite X-Men art team, which is saying a ton when you factor in like Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Mark Silvestri and Dan Green. Um, but yeah, there's just no denying how good he makes every character look and how well he handles so many characters and so many word balloons because this is a Bendis comic, for sure. So there's tons of word balloons. But yeah, just everything. I mean, the coloring complements these pages, so much. Um, I'm not a huge fan of kind of big two comic book coloring. I think it's all kind of flash. It's all kind of highlights and it's all highlights, not a lot of shadows. It's all bright in your face, overly rendered. But something about Marte Gracia's work here, and now when he colors Pepe Larraz and just any other book that he colors, everything pops perfectly without being overdone. I can't explain it much better than that, other than everything works, and this trio works so well together. It's insane. Nothing is overdone. Nothing is too much. Everything is just in its right place. I mean, the heft that he gives these characters, very similar to what I was talking about with Mignola a minute ago. The heft that he gives these characters, these monstrous characters, and then puts them side by side with like a super skinny, like old school Iceman or super skinny old school Cyclops. It works. It really works. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, just it's a team book. Every page has. I'm looking at a panel right now for those that are watching the video. It's got every panel has a minimum of like 2-3 characters on it, and no one gets short shrift. Everyone looks great. Every pose is dynamic. Everything is it's so well crafted. It's so well done. I mean, he makes Iceman look cool, and Iceman sucks. Especially, well, I don't know which sucks worse, old Iceman where he's just like a snowman, or new Iceman where he's like ice monster demon guy, which is also dumb. I mean, let's not even talk about like Ultimate X-Men Iceman with the bandana and the cargo shorts. It's just Iceman. I don't understand how this character has stuck around for as long as he has. He offers nothing to comics. But even here, Stuart Immonen makes him look fantastic. Just amazing work all around. I pulled some pages from Guardians of the Galaxy when they did a crossover, kind of a Phoenix Saga crossover with the X-Men. He draws that team great. Everything he draws is great. It makes no sense. And Angela here, the character Angela never looked better. Apologies to Greg Capullo, because when I bought that Angela miniseries when I was like 20, I was like, oh shit, this is something. And it just Stuart Immonen just makes her look 1,000 times more impressive. And yeah, it's just great gestural drawings, great, almost like animated. It's like you're catching every panel in the middle of a cell or like in the middle of a movie. It's like a frame. It's drawn so well. Nothing's static. Nothing's boring. Everything just has dynamic energy, kind of just jammed into every single panel. It's crazy. I could look at this all day. So now we're going to take a minute, get in the car, get in the DeLorean, go back a little bit to where I first fell in love with Stu. And that was Next Wave, Agents of Hate. So, I had read some of, or, this is where I first started paying attention to Stuart's work. I had read Shock Rockets. I remember I got it from a library when I was in Phoenix in like 2005, 2006. And I was reading it. And, I really remember like reading it on the toilet one day and just thinking like, oh, this book is kind of cool, but the art it's just not for me. It was like, this figure work was softer, more mainstream, more like, more easy to digest, but also easy to overlook and easy to not sit there and like, really marvel at or really study. A lot less exciting. And then all of a sudden, Next Wave Agents of Hate came out in March of 2006. Again, Wade von Grawbadger on inks and Dave McCaig on colors. And sorry, I lost my place there. I'm trying to do two different things. I need to hire a producer. So yeah, I have the complete collection. It's also, I believe, maybe it's not. Maybe it is on Comixology Unlimited right now. I can't be sure, but yeah, just everything in this book works as well. It's got the coloring style that I like. Dave McCaig does coloring that I like, kind of the same similar style coloring I do. You get really interesting color choices, and then you put in your shadows, and then you put in some highlights, and boom, you got it. It's all done, and it's all done really well. And yeah, this book like almost like shouted to me when I first saw it. I was like, this is like nothing that I'm reading right now. This is so new and energetic and gestural, like I mentioned a minute ago, and just sort of like just dynamic and shape based and graphically designed rather than just be like just boring ass shit. So Next Wave was a whole thing. I mean, it was just a whole thing. You got Elsa Blood Moon like destroying a jeep with a guitar, fighting robots. You have just just amazing panels, amazing work, just great cartooning, which I hadn't seen from Stewart up to this point. Again, I hadn't been following everything he had done. Maybe he did work before this that was like this, but to me, this was like a sea change in his work, and especially in my notice of his work. And for anyone watching the video, there's some great panel here that's colored. The middle panel here, where Dave made Elsa and the guitar like a blue, so that you would look past her and then focus on the dude that she just stabbed with the neck of a guitar. Just brilliant color design, brilliant everything. And then maybe the most important aspect of Next Wave was he made Boom Boom cool. And I mean, she basically throws little time bombs out of her fingers, and her name is Boom Boom. And all of a sudden, you give her a flight belt, and she's rad as fuck. So, shout out to Stewart for being able to do that. Just, I'll never be able to draw hands as good as Stewart Eamon. Look at that shit. It's just so good. Swing by, pick it up. Next Wave Agents of Hate. It's great. You should pick it up now if you're a WandaVision fan and you've just been watching WandaVision and never heard of this book. It's got Monica Rambeau in it. I think she's called Photon in this, or maybe Spectrum. I can't. Maybe they just call her Monica. I can't remember at this point. But yeah, just classic. Widely regarded, I think, among comic creators and comic artists as seminal work of the last like 20 years, for sure. But now I'm going to move on to my favorite work of Stewart's, and that is Russian Olive to Red King, which was not on Comixology Unlimited, and was not, I couldn't find like a lot of artwork from it posted using my Google search. So I just took some photos with my cell phone. So the next couple images, if you're watching the YouTube video, are going to look a little shitty, but what are you going to do? I have a 6-year-old cell phone to go with the 6-year-old Russian Olive to Red King. Came out through Ad House Books in a hardcover format in July of 2015. So I picked up this copy directly from Catherine and Stewart at HeroesCon that year. I knew them a bit because they came out to a show that I organized, Arizona Comic Mini Expo. I think it was in 2013 or 2014 they came out. So anyways, like they had a long line because, of course, they had a long line, but I was kind of a dick. I kind of slipped in behind the booths, and I kind of just walked up to Catherine. I said hi to her. I skipped the line, said hi to her, and told her that I planned to pick up a copy later. So just don't sell out. Like, I didn't know how many they had. I said, look, I'll be over, later in the day or later in the weekend. I definitely want a copy, so please don't sell out. And, And then a couple hours later, she's brought it over to my table for me. Like it was like a princess moment. She's hand delivered this book to me. Um, and she was signing them, and I think she's writing poems. She's writing poetry in the inset, and Stuart drew like a dog. Uh, just great moment. Just super nice. Um, just they're the best people. They're the best people. I mean, they're Canadians. What are you gonna do? They're just awesome people. I'll never, if my comics career died tomorrow, a highlight of it would be having them out here in Arizona for that show, and going to drinks with them afterwards and just shooting the shit. It was a beautiful, beautiful night, great night. But yeah, on this book, Russian Olive the Red King, I don't know how many of you have heard of it or seen it. But yeah, they did everything. I mean, Catherine wrote it, and then Stewart did everything else. So he inked and colored himself here. It's far and away my favorite book. I mean, his coloring work is outstanding. His understanding of mood and lighting and pacing just really blew me away. When I first looked at this book, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, who knew that this guy, who is such an amazing artist, and so good at his craft, is also a brilliant inker, a brilliant colorist, and just a flat out solid. Like he could be a top notch illustrator that's what he wanted to do, was just illustrations. I'm sure he'd be super high in demand, and I just can't get over how good this book is, how good it looks. The paper stock, it's got like a rough card stock almost. Uh, just everything about it is just great stuff. Um, it's almost like a minimalist approach, especially considering most of his big two superhero work. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough. It is just so insanely good. The art's great. The cartooning, again, he's pushing his cartooning even more in this. Um, it's just super. Can't recommend it enough. And then if you're watching the video, just this last panel that's on the screen right now, like the lighting of that panel, it is so cinematic. It shows such an understanding of like where to direct the reader's eyes, and how to tell a story, and how to tell a story with color almost in art, because there's not really much word balloons on this page. That last panel right there of the open fridge with the light shining on the kitchen floor is one of my favorite panels in comic book history. It's so good. I can't recommend this book enough. I don't know if it's still in print. I don't know where you'd be able to find a copy, but you should definitely track it down if you're a fan of comic book art, because this really is like a master class. This is him doing exactly what he wants every step of the way. It's beautiful. All right. We're down to our last artist. So if you're only listening to this and you're like, this episode sucks because I don't know what he's talking about, well, we got one more artist to go. Chicago's own. Sorry, I was referring to the beer there when I said Chicago's own. So my next artist is probably definitely one of my favorite artists. It's hard to categorize these dudes, but he's right up there, and it's Cory Walker. So the cover that's being shown right now, this Punisher War Journal cover, is Errol Olivetti. Obviously not Cory Walker, but he draws the inside here. But yeah, so I've loved Cory's work for years, and I was thrilled because I was also able to have him at a couple of the Arizona Comic Mini Expos. He used to live in Arizona, so I've been able to kind of not hang out with him, but be around him in like a signing setting, and I've been able to see him sketch and chat with him a bit. I saw him. There's a funny story when we went to lunch with Eric Larson, but that's not a story to tell. And not that it's not a story to tell. It's just it's who cares. But yeah, so be sure to check out as we're talking about this. Check out the Invincible cartoon on Amazon Prime. Just came out. I'm a big fan of Cory's later Invincible work, and his early stuff in Invincible is really interesting too, because you can see like a guy grow immensely over a handful of issues. But I didn't pull any Invincible stuff for these examples because it was not on Comixology Unlimited, and I did not feel like digging through my long boxes and taking cell phone photos for this video. So I pulled some other Corey stuff that I really enjoy. First of all, is this Punisher War Journal um, issue, written by Matt Fraction, colored by Dave Stewart, penciled and inked by Corey Walker. Came out in June 2008. Punisher War Journal number 13. This first page is anyone who knows the issue, or if you pick up the issue, there's a great page in here. It's one of the best storytelling pages of all time. Excuse me. So let me set the stage for you. There's a van. The back of the van is like super, like pinned down, and kind of like almost to the floor. The back of the van, and then it's like that for a couple. It's like that for a couple panels. It does that great Corey Walker, Ryan Kirkman gag where they reuse the panels, but this one's a little different because it shows time passing. There's people walking by, cars driving by, that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, the Rhino bursts out of the back of the van. And from behind Rhino, we can see the van now bounces off the ground. So it was pinned to the ground because of the weight of the Rhino. And as soon as he jumps out, it kind of bounces up. And it's such great, I mean, such insanely great storytelling and such a genius kind of move. Like it's not something that like it's not something I would have thought about. You know, it really is a sign of a great cartoonist to be able to pull something like that off. And he draws a great Punisher with like a slick back hairdo. I was doing commissions with the slick back hairdo Punisher for a while after this issue came out. It's just great. Dave Stewart, obviously master colorist, really doing great work here on Corey's stuff. Just a super fun issue. It's got Spider-Man in the black costume. Like I said, the Punisher, classic Punisher, Spider-Man black costume, a gigantic Rhino getting beat up all around. It's got Kraven the Hunter in it. Just really good issue all the way around. There's like a 2-page interlude in the middle of it featuring Domino. Like earlier I mentioned, it's not the last sexy Domino we're going to see on this show. Just great work here. I mean, just again, he's one of those dudes that seems to be able to draw everyone really well. And he tends to draw great Liefeld characters. I think that's, I think Corey might be a little bit younger than me, or shit, maybe considerably younger than me. I don't know, but he does have a love, I think, and maybe it's through Kirkman or what, but he has a love for these Liefeld-esque characters like Domino, Cable, Shatterstar. I would love for a miniseries. I would love for Marvel to hire him to do a miniseries drawing the original X-Force squad. Fucking Farrell, Richter, just the whole gang. Warpath, do it. Just pay him whatever the fuck it costs. And it's just great. If you Google Corey stuff, you'll see a lot of awesome doodles of Cable, Shatterstar, Domino, stuff like that. He also went on a kick where he designed like 1 million Supergirl costumes that were all absolutely brilliant. But yeah, here you just have great movement. It's such a great version of Domino in this book. It's only in it for 2 pages, I think, but you really get a sense that he'd be great on a book like this. Just stellar. So yeah, I would love for them to do this kind of book. So now we're moving on to a couple examples of Destroyer Max, which was a mini series that when Marvel had their Max line, they did a Destroyer book, him and Robert Kirkman, and it's colored by Val Staples. And it's essentially an Invincible story using the Destroyer character. And this series also had covers by Jason Pearson. So it's just a really fun kind of action comic, militants, monsters, that kind of shit. It's fun. It's just a fun book. Good read. I would love to see this. Not that I don't think Val Staples did a great job, but I think this book would be great in like black and white, like a gritty black and white kind of thing. I don't know how well these super bright colors have aged on this book, but still super cool. I love it. I have the trade. It's a great looking book. And then we're going to go into another one shot that Corey did featuring Cable, and it's Marvel Team Up number 19 with Cliff Rathburn on inks and Bill Crabtree on colors. This is from June of 2006. And again, it's got a Cory Walker Cable to die for. Just look. Look. Just if you're watching the video, just look at this image. It might be an almost perfect version of Cable. It owes a lot to Mignola. He was kind of channeling a lot of Mignola here, but it's a perfect kind of loose sister book to that Mignola X-Force issue I talked about earlier. There are very few images floating around online, but this is an issue I highly recommend. I mean, it's got Wolverine in it, Jubilee, Nick Fury. They go up against the Mandarin. It's so good. If I remember correctly, like Wolverine gets like burnt to a crisp, and so his face is like half hanging off for part of the issue. I might have to just. I mean, I have this floppy, but I might just have to buy this on Comixology just so I can look at it and gush over it. It's so good. This is my Cable. You take your young Cable and you kick rocks, shove them up your ass. This is what Cable should be: old, angry, and armed to the teeth. I mean, it's just beautiful. And then in these pages, he kind of ties right into that Mignola X-Force 8 issue. Just super stellar work. Really, really great stuff here. And then finally, we're going to move on to one of my favorite things Cory's done, and that's Science Dog at Image with Robert Kirkman, Dave Stewart on colors. This is another one where I couldn't find any images online, and it wasn't on Comixology Unlimited. So again, I took photos with my jazzy Samsung from 1992. But yeah, Science Dog is obviously a comic within a comic. It's a character in the Invincible universe. That's a comic book that Mark reads. But there's a hardcover out. It's probably about 40 pages, maybe 48 pages, a little bit oversized, and it's just great. It's Cory being Cory, Dave Stewart on colors. There's another colorist listed. I can't, Chris Chuckery. I wasn't able when my quick flip through today decide who colored what, but this looks like Dave Stewart to me. But yeah, just look at these panels. They're so great. Science Dog is so much fun. It's just a fun book. It's a fun book. It's got mechs, it's got monsters, time travel, aliens, dimension hopping, a sexy redhead, that Cory draws so well. What's not to absolutely love about this book? It's just great. It's just nothing but fun. And I really like the textures. The colors here add a texture you don't really see in Cory's work. It's usually colored more flat, more like I tend to color. But there's a lot of textures and a lot of nuance here in the colors that I think work really well. And so, it's a fun character by one of my favorite artists. I mean, what are you going to do? Cory drew for me one year. He drew the character of the Arizona Comic Mini Expo, and I colored it, and I used it for years on all of our promotional stuff because it's just so good. It's just so perfect. And then, and of course, Cory is a guy who's like, "Oh, sorry, I rushed it. I wish I could have done a better job." And it's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, and there you go. You got Cory Walker, Mike Mignola, and Stuart Emanin. Great guys. All these books can be picked up on Comixology Unlimited. I'll throw links up to what I was talking about on tigshow.com. That's our website. Sorry, I'm a little tired. It's a little late for me. And I'm really struggling without my partner here to help me out. Every time I take a drink, it's just going to be silence. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. Again, check out, watch this video on our YouTube channel. You can get a link there from tigshow.com, or, you can always go to YouTube, search The Illustrious Gentleman. And while you're there, check out the Cartoons Kayfabe videos, because they do this a lot better than I do. They're true fans of comic art, and they have a much larger knowledge base than I do. And there's not one of them trying to carry the whole show either. So, it's not just one dipshit and a camera. So yeah, check them all out. And thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.